Hello, you Mayhem Makers. I'm Mindy with Quilting Mayhem, and welcome back to Summer Sampler. We are up to week 8, so this is our last week. We have this. I love this block. This is very me colors. I love this. Don't be scared of it. I did save the most complicated block for last, but it's really not that hard. And if you want to do certain sections of it, so you could do this section here and this section here in strip sets. So if you don't know what a strip set is, please go back to week 7. I showed you how to do that, but you need to make that decision before you cut your fabric, because you'll need to cut strips versus a bunch of squares. All right, but I have it as squares. I'm going to show you how to put it together that way, and it'll come together. Don't worry. So I'm going to switch the camera. Hold on. All right. So I had to pull the camera kind of higher up. So do not come at me for anything else you see. But because this block is kind of set on the diagonal, it's a little harder to fit into everything. And this is where I'm saying you could do strip sets. So if you did a strip of, or 2 strips of this color and a strip of this color, sewed it together and then cross cut it to make then this section, because you then have to put these triangles on. So for you advanced quilters, I'm sure that makes sense. You can go knock that out, because you're going to need 2 that look like this for each block and only 1 that look like this for each block. But because you're doing multiples, it may be easier to do them in those strip sets, because then like this block, you need 2 of this, 2 of those, 1 of these, sew them in one big strip, cross cut it, and then you can put them together. But for everybody else, those of you, especially if you're new, we're just going to sew squares together in a row. The middle row, you do 1 of these, and it gets 1 of each of the smaller triangles on the ends. This row here, you are putting 1 of each of the larger triangles on the ends. And then this lonely guy, it's 1 square, and then 1 of each of the longer triangles, plus a set of the smaller triangles on the top. So I'm going to start sewing them together so you can see how this starts working. All right. Little trick for these end triangles, if you're trying to figure out how to lay them out correctly, fold that block in half and just pinch it and fold the triangle in half on the longest side and pinch it, and then you can match those up so that triangle is evenly across that square. And yes, you want these dog ears, you want this sticking out at the end. That's how you know it will lay up correctly. If this triangle is too small and it fits inside that square, you've cut something wrong. Okay, something to note when you're doing this unit. I do recommend doing the 2 larger triangles first. Make sure it looks like this. And then if these dog ears bother you, grab your handy snips and just cut those ears off. Okay. And then you can do the same thing where you are folding it in half, making that crease, taking that smaller triangle, folding it in half, and lining it up. And yes, once again, those little dog ears, they're gonna stick out, and you want that. That's how you know things are lining up correctly. So do that for each of these units before you start putting your rows together. And then what I was going to show you when I did that large row, what I'm going to call kind of a pro tip. I'll show you what I mean. So this is just, what I'll show you is Mindy being what she calls more efficient. I like to sew as much as possible. So let's make these little dog ears go away. And then press. And then, and sew again. So instead of doing 1 seam at a time, and then I throw my square on the floor here, is I started working out in for this row. All right. So I did these triangles to this. So I did both of these at the same time, and then I pressed. And so then I took this unit and sewed it to this square. so I could sew both of them at the same time and then press. And then I'll have to do, you know, one at a time when we get to the middle. But instead of sew press, you know, sew press, you know, one at a time, I could at least do 2 seams, 2 pressings each time for this row. And even, say this other row, that's still attached to my machine. This row I did the same thing. I did this unit and this unit first, and then I started sewing here and I'm here to make that row. So I'm going to go press and that row will be done. And I just like it instead of sew, stop, press, one at a time. If I can do 2 or more, especially if you're doing multiples of these, you could have all the squares and do, you know, all 9 at a time. And it just seems to go faster that way. But I also like to be kind of a speed demon. So I try to figure out what's the quickest, fastest, most efficient way, because I'm trying to get on to the next thing. But if you need that slow and steady one at a time, that is all you. Please do it that way. Whatever makes you happy. But if you're always trying to figure out how to speed it up a little bit, that is my tip for that. So I'm going to go finish these rows and then we'll talk about how to put it together. All right, so here's how we're starting to look. So we're going to have these corner units and then this row and this center row. Thankfully, this unit is the same on both sides of this block, and that's why I have them stacked on top of each other, because no matter what, it's going to be the same going both ways. So we're going to treat them together, once again, in the name of efficiency. So once again, dog ears, if they're bugging you, cut them off. Just snip those guys. You're going to have little dog ears all over your sewing studio. Kind of like dust bunnies. You just end up finding them everywhere. The outer ones over there, I don't worry about until the very end when I make sure that my block is square. But those guys, chop them off so that you have a nice straight line. So you're just going to take that on top of there and start lining up. Now, pressing. Notice I press open. Once again, we're going to have that conversation. You can press however you want. There's no pressing, quilty police, all that kind of stuff. But if you're pressing directionally, you're going to have to make sure that if you pressed in this way to the dark side, these seams are going to need to be pressed outward, and then these would be pressed inward. Like, you have to keep all your directionality, or they all need to go one way and then the other way. The only problem, you know, with those kinds of methods sometimes is that, like, if you press this color out, you're going to see it a little more behind this white. Not a huge deal. It's not like this is black. But that is part of what happens when you're trying to press directionally and then have to get them to marry up with the rest of your rows. And that's just more why I advocate pressing open, because I don't have to worry about that. Mine are flat and they're just going to marry up right next to each other, right on top. We're going back to those fork pins. If you did not see a video for row number 7, I brought out the lovely magic pins, the fork pins. I'm really liking these because this head of the pin actually kind of tilts up. So the fork pin part lays flat, but the head is up. And it is heat resistant. It has a ridge, so it's easier to grip. And then all you're doing, let's see if I can show you well enough, is essentially going on either side of that seam, going down and coming back up. So it's nice and flat. We're going to marry this seam over here and do the same thing. Go down, back through. And then once again, you're going to have more dog ears. So many dog ears in this. But then take it to the machine, do your 1/4 inch seam. All right, so one more time. Fairly simple. Take those seams, match them. If you're pressing directionally, just make sure like the top one goes that way and the bottom one goes that way, or vice versa. But that is the goal when you're pressing directionally. Then we're just down and up. And you can use fork pins even if you're pressing directionally. Works the same way. Just as nice that it's going to keep all those fabrics, no matter what side you've pressed to, kind of held down. Right, so I'm going to sew that. And these are going to become one unit that I will then sew to this main center, and I'm going to cut these dog ears, so just keep that in mind. All right, so these are now one happy big triangle unit, and then you have this center bar. And I do love these magic pens come in their own little carry case, so great for taking to classes and retreats and things. So we're then just going to start matching up seams and pinning, and we'll just do one side and I'll sew it on, press it, and then essentially do the same thing to the other side, and the block is done. I mean, can you believe we're there? So you will make your multiples of this and your quilt can be put together. How exciting. I don't know about you, but it feels like summer or barely just started and it already seems to be ending all at the same time. That's kind of the Washington way. I think our summers start a little later. We don't finally get warm weather. We got lucky and got some good hot weather a couple weeks ago, but it's already cooling down again, I swear. All right, so pin every seam, take it to the machine, sew it, press it, and then add the other side, same way, and press, and you'll have your block. Be right back. All right, we've got it pressed, we're ready, and we're done. Look at that. It's so pretty. I hope it works out for you. If you have any problems, please reach out. You can email at info@Quilting Mayhem. You can call us at the store. You can, if you're local, come see us at the store. We want you to be successful. We want you to be happy. So let us know if you're struggling so that we can help you. Otherwise, I hope you've really enjoyed the summer sampler blocks this year. It's been a lot of fun putting them together and doing these videos for everybody. Please make sure that you're liking and subscribing all our social media and our YouTube channel, our Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, any of those social media channels that you're using. Please make sure that you are friending us and liking us, and even sharing us. That's, how we get ourselves out there, is share with all your quilty friends if you're really enjoying what we're doing here. So I hope you have a lovely day and enjoy the rest of your summer. Keep on stitching.